Okay, here we go. So today's training is on social interaction and more specifically about sibling play. After completing this training, we should be able to recognize how play for individuals with autism may be different from typical play, describe the different types of play, and facilitate play between our children. Our children meaning our individuals who are typically developed and those who are on the spectrum. What is play? Play is engaging in activity for enjoyment and recreation rather than a serious or practical purpose, especially by children. So when I hear play, I initially can visualize individuals playing with Play-Doh, with toys, with trucks, with dolls, playing video games, all of those things that we typically do to take our minds off of things as adults are things that I consider to be play. Um, and play is whatever it is that is enjoyable for you. So play may be reading a book or doing a puzzle or doing a crossword. It's all about what it is that you enjoy to do. Play for children with autism, well, not even just children, for individuals with autism, may look differently than what we usually think play is. So instead of playing with their Legos, they may sort their Legos by size. So you have all of your Legos that have one peg in this column, those that have two pegs in this column, your four peg Legos in this column, and then your Legos with intricate shapes in this column. So that's their version of playing by sorting things. Or they may line things up like in the picture we see here, where we have all of our dinosaurs lined up in this row, and then maybe we have all of our farm animals in this row, and then our aquatic animals in this row. I actually had a client back when I worked in a clinic setting, and that's how he did things. Every day he would come in with his big heavy bag. He had like a tote bag that you would get at TJ Maxx. He had a big tote bag full of containers. Every single day he would come in with these containers, and it would be sorted by the different type of animals. And he would have farm animals, jungle animals, water animals, and literally would spend the day lining them up when he had access to a break. For some individuals, it's simply just having a long time. So time to go and sit in their room and watch TV, or time to sit in their room and do a puzzle, or time to sit on the couch and read a book, or a preferred activity over traditional play. So I don't necessarily want to play in the sandbox, but I would like to go on a walk. Or I don't want to play at the park on the swings like everybody else. I want to sit and watch the birds fly by. Whatever it is that brings you that enjoyment is considered your version of play. And for individuals who are on the spectrum, that play oftentimes looks different. When we're talking about play, I think it's important that we are aware of the different stages of play. I got this information from the Journal of Abnormal and Social Psychology. It's a really nice journal. They print articles that help like the articles. Some of them are a bit heavy to read, but I find that some of the articles are really good at just providing you with those extra tips and tricks to get your learner or your child going. So when we're talking about stages of play, that very first stage is that unoccupied play. So this is when we are at the stage where we're just starting to discover our body. So we're just realizing that, hey, I have an arm and I can do this with my arm, or I have legs and I can kick with my legs, or if I do this at people, they usually have a reaction. So this is that unoccupied play where we have tons of fidgeting happening, and this is usually done by our individuals who are still at that baby stage. So now they're at the stage where they're starting to discover that not only are, I'm here, but I can do things with all these things that are attached to me. Then we have our solitary play. So this is when we're playing by ourselves, our isolated play. So I'm in my crib playing with my blanket, or I am standing up and swatting at all of the bears that I can access while I'm standing up in my crib. This is when I'm just simply engaged by myself doing my own thing. Then we have our spectator play. And this is when we start to see that individuals have an interest in others, because now I'm watching others play. So I'm watching my big sister play with her doll, or I'm at daycare watching the older kids in the next class play with blocks and play with Legos, and I'm watching people and see what people do, and I'm intrigued by these things. And so then we start to move into that parallel play. And this is when I'm going to play next to others. So I'm going to engage with my own things, but I'm interested enough that I'm going to come and sit next to you while you play with your own things. You keep your things, I'll keep mine, but I want to do it next to you. Then we have our associate play, and this is when I'm engaged but not interactive with my play. So maybe we're at the park and I'm playing on the equipment at the park, but I'm not engaging with the other kids who are also playing with the equipment. So maybe all the kids are running around playing tag with one another, and I'm just simply on the monkey bars, or I'm climbing up the ladder to go down the slide. Or maybe me and somebody else who came to the park alone are both on the swings and we're swinging next to each other, but we are not engaged with one another. And then we have our cooperative play, and this is when I am fully interactive. At this point, I am playing with everybody. So you guys are playing tag, I'm playing tag. If everybody is painting their faces, I'm painting my face. Everyone is playing soccer, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to try and kick the soccer ball as well. That fully interactive play, I think that's the stage that we all hope for our children to get to, because at that point, they're making those social connections and they're building those problem solving skills by having that time with one another. So the big part of the training, which is why I think most of you are here, is so that we can learn how to facilitate play between our individuals who are on the spectrum and with our typically developed individuals. It's not an easy thing to do. It will take some time. I just want to give that disclaimer. But if you are determined, if your other children are determined to really have that connection with their sibling, I think it's absolutely 100% something that's achievable. So when you are facilitating play between your children, you want to have roles. And these roles are very important because they help with the flow of how things are going to go. So as the parent or as the adult, as the caregiver, as the overseer, you are the facilitator. You are the person who will instruct that typically developed child on how to deal or how to engage with their sibling who is on the spectrum. That sibling that you are going to be facilitating through is considered your instructor at this point, because they are the person who's going to come in and shake things up. They're going to be the one who's going to show the other person, like, hey, no. I know you love doing this with your blocks, but let me show you something else that we can do. And not only can we do it, we can do it together. And then we have our child who's on the spectrum, who is considered to be our learner. The first step to facilitating play is to have pairing sessions. I cannot stress how important it is to pair with your children, or to have your children pair with one another, or to have your niece and nephew pair with your child. It's so important, especially when you're trying to shake up the way that they're doing something. It's important that you pair with them, because pairing is a time when you are building your relationships. This is where they're going to learn to trust you, or they're going to start to look at you as something that's reinforcing because you bring the fun. And that's what you want to be for your individuals. And if it's not you that's going to be facilitating, that's going to be the instructor in this position, this is what you want your child or your sibling or the kid that next door that you babysit. You want them to understand that during this pairing session, this is where the foundation for everything you do moving forward is laid. So you want to make sure that when you're coming in, you're not immediately interrupting their way of playing. You have to allow them to just be who they are for a little bit. It's okay. You have to just allow them to be who they are. And then maybe what you have to do is you have to do that parallel play. So, okay, if you're going to be here and you're my child who's on the spectrum and you're playing with Legos right here, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to come over here and maybe I'm going to play with wooden blocks. So we both have our own separate thing. We're both engaging in our own thing, but I'm showing you that we can do these things next to each other, because you want them to be comfortable with someone being in close proximity to them when they're engaging in their alone time playing, especially if that individual is a person who really does favor their alone time. It's imperative that you get them used to someone playing next to them first. After you have started that, you want to make sure that you find ways to make their preferred items seem more fun. And it'll all make a lot of sense after we watch this video, after I go through these bullet points. But you want to make it seem more fun. You don't want to just come over with the blocks and sort the blocks like they're sorting and that be all that you do. I'm not intrigued by that. I already can do that. I already know that I can do that with the blocks. If you're going to come over and you're going to have me do different things, it has to be more exciting than what it is that I'm already doing with them. If what you're going to be teaching me is to do the same exact thing, there's no fun in that. I get intrigued and I get excited about new. So I need, for whatever it is that you're going to have me do with this item that's preferred, for me, it has to be out the park. And you want to make sure that when you're doing this pairing process that you're starting out with things that they're familiar with, because they're less likely to shy away from things when it's something they already have that relationship with. It's essentially the same thing that you want to do with them with the pairing process. That you don't want them to shy away from you. You want to pair yourself because you want them to associate you with fun. You want to make sure that you move on when they don't seem interested in your new cool way of playing. Sometimes what I think is cool is actually a little corny, and that's okay. I have come to the point where I understand that everything that I think is cool may not be cool for someone else. And it is harder when you're trying to facilitate that relationship between children, but you want to kind of have those conversations with your instructor, letting them know like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. I saw that you tried to do this and it didn't work out. That's fine. We'll try another time. Or maybe today isn't the best day to try and have John do this because he had a rough day at school. It's not to say that you aren't doing a great job, because you're doing amazing, but today John just isn't interested in doing what you guys do with that block. So you want to make sure that it's not that you don't take offense, or that your instructor or your other child doesn't take offense when what they thought was super cool is really looked at as if it's nothing new under the sun. Another tip rather, while you are having your pairing sessions, is to narrate your activities as a form of engagement. So it just reminds me of when you're trying to feed a baby and you see people take the spoon, here comes the airplane, and they fly the airplane over to the baby's mouth. And so they're narrating, here comes the plane, and they do all these extra things to get that individual excited about eating the food. That's what you kind of want to do when you're in the pairing step for facilitating play. You want to narrate, over exaggerate, use your funny voices, make expressions, use your hands. Really get in there and be engaged, because you want them to walk away from that experience feeling like, wow, Talisa is so cool. Did you see how she did this? Wow. Maybe it's not so bad to engage with her if she's going to be like that. Like, I've played with blocks before, and it's really fun when I play with blocks. But it's so much more exciting to see that the blocks can build 17 tall, and then she became Godzilla and knocked them down. Like, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but to them, it just was like, wow, that's something new. And that's kind of how you have to be in this pairing process. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the most important steps when you are trying to facilitate play with the individual who's on the spectrum and doesn't play like a normal individual or a typically developed individual will play, or they don't necessarily engage with items the way that it was intended for the item to be used. You want to really, really build upon that pairing portion, and do pairing more than once. Don't, just go pair for 15 minutes and then the individual is done and that's it. And so the next time we're expecting for them to automatically want to spend that time with us. No, you have to pair continuously. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing, all day thing. You could simply just have them pair, just do 10 minutes. Like, hey, John, why don't you go sit next to Sarah, and for 10 minutes you play with this, and I want you to, I want you to use funny voices. I want you to give all the animals character names. I want you to just go over the top with it. 10 minutes, and that's it. And before you know it, it'll start to become routine for them. And eventually they'll start to do those things on their own. You won't even necessarily have to be a facilitator anymore. So what I want to do is show you guys my favorite video of someone pairing. It's been a favorite video of mine for years. I'm not quite sure who this lady is. I'm not sure where she came from. All I know is I adore the way that she pairs with her individuals. And so as soon as I can get it pulled up, I'll share the video with you guys. Making sure that it includes my sound. There we go. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Perfect. Okie doke. And then I'm going to start playing it. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Perfect.
Wow. Green and red and yellow. Hello? Is Mikey there? Dun, dun, dun. Blue and I see glasses and I see you. Hello? Hello? Is Mikey there? Hello? Hello, friend. Hello? Hello? Is Mikey here? I am here. Dun, dun, dun. Oh my God, let me in. Hello, is Mikey there? Hello? Hey! So silly. Got a green hat. And a green hat on you. See you soon. Bye. Hello. I'm gonna put blue and I got all these pieces. I got red and blue. It's a smiley face. Oh, he's in the box. He got in the box. Yes, we had great asking. I love the way you played so nicely with me. Again, Marvel, I love the way you asked so nicely. Ready? 1 and 2. Great job. I want to swing. Ready? Do-do, 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 do-do. In the back? Sure. Ready? Okay. Do-do, 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 do-do. Mike, ready? I'm in the box! I'm in the box! Ready? Okay, great. You did your work. Ta-da. Okay, hold on. Hold on.
And what I loved about that video is that she didn't immediately jump in and disrupt what it is that he was doing. If you saw, she took the time to, you know, engage in the way that he was engaged in items. And she tried a couple of different things out, and she just waited to see what she did that stuck. I don't know if you saw it or if you recognize it or not, but like she tried to use some of the things in the box to see through, and he wasn't going for that. He immediately showed her what it is that he wanted to play with, how he wanted to play with the items, which was to talk on the phone. And so that's kind of what you want your pairing session to look like. You don't want to immediately jump in and show them how you want them to do it. You want to let them guide you almost. So when you are doing your process for facilitating play, I chose these 4 different types of play because this is generally what you'll see and the different steps that you'll be in. So we've already started our pairing process. We've taken 3 to 4 different days out the week, and just short sessions, just about 5 to 10 minute sessions where I facilitated them to play with one another. And it's starting out with their solitary play. So my individual who's on the spectrum, let's call him D. So now D plays by himself, and D engages in bubbles by himself. D engages in Legos by himself. He does puzzles by himself, but I'm trying to introduce social interactions to D. So I'm going to whisper in my other child's ear, and let's call that child K. So I'm whispering in K's ear like, hey, so D's playing by himself, and I want to try and introduce some things to D. So I need you to be mommy's big helper. Can you help me out, please? Because you got to pump them up too. You got to do that. So now I've pumped up K, and K is ready. She's like, okay, mommy, we can do this. Let's go. Don't forget to give me my Oreos after I do this for you, though. So now I have Kay in a position where she's ready. She's going to go in and help D out. So now we're going to take D out of that solitary play. And what I'm going to do is, because D loves bubbles, I'm going to give Kay her own bubbles. But I'm going to give Kay a couple of different types of bubbles. So I'm going to give her the bubble wine. I'm going to give her the typical jar of bubbles that you pull the wine out of. I'm going to give her a bubble gun. I'm going to give her a bubble machine. Whatever I can think of that would have D interested in playing with K, I'm going to equip K with those things. So now D and K are playing next to one another. So I've sent Kay with her bag of tricks, and she's over there pulling everything out, having a good time with it. D's interested because he's trying to figure out, like, wait a minute, my bubbles don't do that. What are you doing over there, Kay? So now they are playing next to each other, and Kay's getting him interested. She's piqued his interest. She has him intrigued because he's trying to figure out, like, oh, wait, you can do all of that with it? Because D just blows his bubbles and just watches them float away. But Kay has showed him, like, oop, I can pop bubbles. Not only can I pop bubbles, if I'm really, really careful and I move really, really slow, I can catch bubbles. And not only can I catch this bubble, but you see that cluster of 3 bubbles right there? Oh, I'm going to catch that too. So now she has D intrigued. Now we're playing next to one another, and I'm happy with my bubbles, but I'm also a little jealous because Kay's doing a lot of different things with her bubbles. So now we're going to have associate play. Like, okay, Kay, you play with your bubbles. I'm going to play with my bubbles. And I'm going to watch you play with your bubbles because what you're doing with your bubbles is way more exciting than what I'm doing with my bubbles. But I'm a little nervous, so I'm not going to necessarily interact with you. But we can keep playing with the same thing next to each other and spend this time together for the whole week. Every time for those 10 minutes when you come and play next to me, Kay, I'm not going to get upset and walk away like I normally would. Or I'm not going to be frustrated that you're invading my cone. Like, I'm not going to be upset by that. That's a big step. And if that's the only step that your individual takes, I want you to be proud of your individual, you and your baby who went over to try and play with your individual, because that's a huge step for them to even be accepting of someone coming into their space. So when we're doing that associate play, it's fine. You can play with your stuff. You can play with your stuff, but we're going to do it at the same time, engage with the same things, right in the same space. Hopefully we get to the stage where we're at cooperative play. Hopefully we get there where they can take turns using the bubble gun and they're shooting the bubble gun at each other, giving each other the opportunity to chase each other and pop the bubbles with one another. Hopefully we get there. That's the ultimate goal, is to get to that cooperative play where not only are you playing next to someone, but you're playing with them. You're interacting. You're building those social skills. You're trying to figure out how to deal with conflict resolution. Because even with play, sometimes things get tricky. Like, I may want to play with Bubbles and be a pirate, whereas you want to play with Bubbles, you want to be a fairy. I don't want to be a fairy. I want to be a pirate. But I learned that conflict resolution and how we're gonna figure it out. We may be pirate, fairy, zombies by the end of our little tip, but I'm cooperating and I'm playing. I'm engaging. Those things are so important. So many different things can be taught through play, and it just takes the work, and it takes for you to make it seem as if playing with me is way better than playing with yourself. Some reminders to walk away with from this training is that there may not be any signs of interest in the beginning stage, and that's perfectly fine. We have to remember that for as long as this person has been alive, they've only engaged in that solitary play. So they aren't necessarily intrigued. They don't see anything wrong with them playing by themselves. And not that there's something wrong, but they don't feel as if they have a need to interact with someone else. So they're typically probably not going to be excited that you're trying to shake some stuff up. If it takes for you to do a couple of pairing sessions for a couple of weeks, just keep at it. Keep at it. And if you do see that after a while that your child is starting to become discouraged because nothing they're doing is working, maybe you have to shift the items you're using, or maybe you have to do it at a different time throughout the day. Like if they have to interact with individuals for 6 hours a day at school, and then they come home and they just want their alone time, then maybe we don't do it on the weekdays. Maybe I only have you guys do these pairing sessions on Saturdays and Sundays. Because at that point, your social interaction meter hasn't run its course. You haven't had so much interaction with people. So now you have a little bit of time that you can give to us. Work at a pace that's comfortable for everyone involved. If your typically developed individual is saying that their feelings are starting to be hurt, or if you can just tell that their heart isn't in it anymore, give them a break. Let them take a break. It's perfectly fine if you take a break. Let them take a break and decide, like, okay, well, today, Kate, you don't have to do this today. Today, you can actually go outside and play with the other kids. Or we're going to do this at a different time of the day. Or, like I said, we're going to do this only on the weekends now. Work at the pace that's best for everybody involved, because you don't want to force it. You want it, of course, we're technically forcing it, but you don't want it to feel forced. You want it to feel as authentic and natural as you possibly can make it, but keep it exciting. Don't go into the pair session disrupting their flow of play. It's important that they don't feel like you're attacking what they think is interesting. Last thing you want is to go over and just kind of take over something, because typically people don't want to be involved with individuals who take over everything, because now it's not fun. Now what I'm enjoying doesn't matter to you, is what you're saying to me, and you don't want them to feel that way. Introduce new ways to play slowly. You don't want to come in and just flying off the handle with all these different things, because it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't even know you can do all of these amazing things. Don't overwhelm me, because you're going to be exciting, and because you're going to be smiling, because you're going to be funny, and because you're going to use voices, you're going to use your hands, you're going to be super animated. I have no choice but to be intrigued by what you're doing. Last thing I want you to do is to overwhelm me with giving me too much good at one time. Everything in moderation. And above all else, have fun. Enjoy yourself. I don't know if you can tell, but I really had fun with this training. But it's because it's something that I'm passionate about. I love pairing, I think, is so essential. And when I first started out in this field, I could not understand why I had to pair every single day with the individuals I provided services to. It's just, I felt like when I first started, like, you don't remember all those funny voices I used yesterday? Why are you treating me like a stranger today? And I was working with these individuals every day, Monday through Saturday. But I had to learn that it takes time. It has to almost become a routine. It has to be repetitious for them. And that's what pairing does. It creates that routine. It establishes that relationship. And it's so important. It's the most important part when you are trying to facilitate sibling play. You have to pump K up so that she can get D intrigued in what she's doing so they can start to engage with each other. I'm done rambling on about the greatness that is pairing. Does anybody have any questions?
I love this training, Talisa.
Thank you so much. This was probably my favorite one out of the entire series that we did.
It's fun. We're going to start up our 2-year-old classroom again in the fall, and this is my favorite part of being in class with my babies.
Well, if no one has any questions, I'm going to stop